You know, in my 34 years in the criminal justice system as a lawyer and as a judge, I've seen serial killers, I've seen contract killers, I've seen murderers of every variety and stripe, but I have to say, Mrs. Castor, you are in a class by yourself. What you did to David Castor can only be described as premeditated torture. And while you're not being held accountable for it here, I must say that what you did to Michael Wallace was also premeditated torture. Premeditation is not something we often see in the criminal courts, but it certainly is present in both of these instances. Now, as bad and as evil as that is, what you tried to do to your daughter Ashley is simply something that I find I almost can't comprehend. I've seen a lot of defendants come through this court system, including some whose parents tried to take the blame for what they did, but I've never seen one who was prepared to sacrifice their child to shift the blame away from themselves. You know, I listened carefully to the testimony of both your daughters, and I have daughters too. They're older than yours, but they have a similar gap in their ages. And I listened not only to the wonderment of your daughter Ashley as she tried to comprehend what you did to her, I also listened to the horror your daughter Bree experienced in finding her older sister almost dead. You not only deprived those children of their father, but you were prepared to deprive them of one another. And I'm certain that your daughters, like my daughters, like most children who have siblings, expect and are comforted by the knowledge that when their parents pass on, they'll at least have each other to grow old and share life with. You almost succeeded in murdering one child and orphaning the other. You know, that ranks in my judgment as one of the most reprehensible things I think I've ever seen in the criminal justice system. I know that you maintain your innocence, but I'll tell you, in my view, the evidence of your guilt is overwhelming. Unlike many defendants who pass through my courtroom, you're not just a danger to the general public, you're a danger to the people who love you and are closest to you.
Hello there. Hi. I hope you're doing fantastic today. My name is Clea Tanui and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's case centers around love and family betrayal. Let's get into it. Stacey Castor was born in July 24, 1967 in Clay, New York. Her parents were Jerry Daniels and Judy Eaton. Stacey was a little girl with big dreams who always said that she wanted to grow up to be a lawyer. And in high school, she began to take classes that would help her along that path. However, those dreams will be interrupted in 1985 when she was 17 years old. Stacey met a young man named Michael Wallace, who she claimed to be the love of her life. She will tell people that it was absolutely love at first sight. Michael has been described by friends to be the life of the party and larger than life, in that if you needed anything that Mike was able to provide, he would. Stacey will say, "I knew 5 minutes after I met him that I was gonna marry him." In April 7th, 1990, Stacey's prediction came true. She married Michael. To outsiders, it looked like they had a strong marriage. Stacey's mother, that is Judy, recalled that her daughter was as happy as she had ever been following her marriage. As time went by, Stacey and Michael would go ahead and have 2 daughters, that is, Ashley and Bree. It is reported that Stacey seemed very well suited for motherhood and was always a present mom to her daughters. She said, "I knew from the minute Ashley was born, my whole reason for being here was to take care of her." However, all was not well with their marriage. Stacey complained that Michael used drugs and alcohol too much and they had no money, that is, despite both working full-time jobs with opposite schedules. Stacey worked during the day as an ambulance dispatcher and Michael worked during the evening as a mechanic. In the winter of 1999, things seemed to get even worse for the family. Michael got sick. A former friend of Stacey said that she was contemplating divorce when Michael got sick. And one day, while Michael was at home with his daughter Ashley, Michael felt too ill to a point where he was having a hard time to walk or to even talk. According to reports, Ashley said that she remembered that at one time, he sat up and he just vomited across the coffee table, laid back down and went back to sleep like nothing ever happened. When Stacey heard about this, she took him to the hospital and told doctors that Michael had a hacking cough and severe exhaustion. The doctors took note of that and believed that it could be a virus or pneumonia. However, Michael told doctors that he felt drunk, but he hadn't had anything to drink, to which the doctors ignored. As days passed by, Michael sought medical attention, with his doctor noting that he had an inner ear disorder. Days later, on January 11, 2000, Michael was found unresponsive on the sofa in the family home and was later pronounced dead at the hospital. Michael was only 38 years old. Following his death, Michael's sister was skeptical of the doctor's conclusion that he had died of an heart attack at just 38 years old. She suggested that an autopsy be performed, but Stacey refused and said that she didn't want to second-guess the doctors. A burial ceremony was held, and immediately after this, Stacey quietly moved on. She collected Michael's $55,000 life insurance policy. In 2001, through her boss, Stacey met her second husband, that is, David Castor. In August 2003, Stacey and David got married, and she took his surname, Castor. She would say, David is a very conscientious, very hardworking, very into outdoors. He has snowmobiles and four-wheelers and a boat. David is a support and a strength and a security to me. Mark these words. Both Stacey and Michael each had children from a previous marriage. David had a grown son, that is David Jr., and Stacey had her two daughters, that is Ashley and Bree. However, this seemed like a good blended family. It is reported that her daughters weren't happy about the marriage. Quote unquote, they'll say, they didn't want their father replaced. When asked about this, Stacey will say, David was difficult with the kids. He expected them to do everything that he said without question. And being my children, they questioned everything. As days went by, the family went quiet and private for some time. However, in August 22, 2005, Stacey made a frantic call to 911 saying her husband hadn't shown up for work on that Monday. She claimed that she last spoke to him at 5 a.m. on Sunday when he locked her out of the bedroom. When detectives arrived to check on what was really going on, Stacey described David's behavior saying, David got upset, took a bottle of Southern Comfort, went into the bedroom and locked himself in, got drunk and wouldn't come out. Stacey added that she assumed that he was sleeping it off. When asked how she knew he was sleeping, she said that she knew he was sleeping because when she put her ear up the door, she could hear him sleeping. After knocking on the bedroom door for a while, the police knocked down the bedroom door only to find David Castor dead, and it was assumed to be suicide. Police found two glasses on the nightstand next to the bed, one containing what was later identified as antifreeze, and underneath the bed, they found a bottle of antifreeze with its top off. When they searched the kitchen, they found a turkey baster apparently smelling alcohol disposed in the trash can, and that is when they began to suspect foul play. When asked about this, Stacey claimed that David had been depressed because he had recently lost his father and that possibly his drinking and suicide that weekend was as a result of him being depressed about his father's death. Those who knew him, including his ex-wife, that is Janice Poisoned Farmer, rejected the idea Castor killed himself. Without wasting much time, Detective Dominic remained skeptical and began an investigation that will last 2 years. The police found out that in David Castor's will, he had left everything to his wife and her two daughters, and nothing to his son. Just 3 months after Castor's death, Detective Dominic reached out to the nearby Cuyahoga County investigators about the death of Michael Wallace to learn more. He said there were certain similarities in the two husbands' deaths. Sergeant Norton said she claimed that Michael Wallace had all sorts of medical issues, We went and got his medical records. The worst thing that ever happened to him was that he had hernia. With all this at hand, police suspected that both of Stacey Castor's husbands were poisoned with antifreeze, a painful death that leads to the formation of crystals in the victim's organs. Investigators decided to exhume the body of her first husband and examine him to see if his organs contained those telltale crystals associated with antifreeze. After the autopsy was completed, Sergeant Michael Norton said that he remembered the medical examiner telling him that Wallace was loaded with crystals. When he heard this, lead detective Dominic said, "I knew at that point that we were dealing with a double homicide and Stacey Castor probably killed both her husbands." Police had set up a camera at Stacey Castor's home and one at the graveyard where her husbands were buried. Authorities also wiretapped her phone and say it was one of those phone calls where they learned that she had been to the cemetery soon after Wallace's body was exhumed. While questioning Stacey Castor, Detective Dominic said that during the line of questioning, Stacey's response was suspicious. Dominic said, "I asked Stacey, do you remember which glass it was that you poured the cranberry juice in?" And she looked at it and said, "Well, when I poured the antifreeze, and then she stopped and said, "I mean, the cranberry juice."
This is the glass I poured the cranberry juice in.
When the detective picked up on her from the slip of the tongue, she accused him of trying to frame her and stopped the interview. Just 5 days after Stacey was brought in for questioning, on September 12, 2007, Ashley Wallace was attending her first day at college when 2 investigators arrived to deliver the news that her father had died of antifreeze poisoning. Wallace was shaken and called her mother. Police wiretaps recorded Castor asking her daughter questions about her conversations with the detectives. Castor then suggested that they have a drink together because they have had, quote-unquote, a hard day. Ashley agrees to go have a drink with her mom, thinking that her mom had good intentions and feeling the need to be there for each other as family. When drinking, Stacey secretly mixed up Ashley's drink. Ashley became sluggish, weak, and eventually passed out and will find herself in her bedroom. The next day, on September 13, 2007, Ashley woke up hungover, went to school, and returned. When she got home, Stacey offered her to get drunk again to celebrate her 21st birthday early. Ashley drank another cocktail her mom had prepared for her. Ashley would later say that she remembered that the drink did not taste very good and that her mom got her a straw and told her to put the straw to the back of her throat and to just drink it. Obediently, Ashley did what her mother had told her, and she said that after drinking the cocktail, she felt tired and went to sleep. On September 14th, that is the next morning, Bree found her sister Ashley barely breathing. She told her mother and they called 911. Stacey relayed to the 911 dispatcher that Ashley had consumed alcohol and quite a few doses of medications and that Ashley had a suicide note. While still in Ashley's bedroom, Bree found a 750-word typewritten letter that appeared to be written by Ashley, with her typed signature, that is, confessing to the murders of her father and stepfather and saying she was now taking her own life. The letter reads, "Dear Mommy, when you read this letter, just remember I love you and everything. I did this because I love you. I'm sorry of all this is happening to you, but now everyone is going to know what really happened, and they will know it wasn't you, it was me. No one was ever supposed to know about Daddy. I told you when Daddy died, it was all my fault, and it was Daddy who was doing things to you never knew about. He was drinking when he was at Pick and Paul house and at Lisa's house. He was smoking pot again. I saw him mean to you and me. He only ever loved Brie. I couldn't let him do things to you anymore. You think that I don't remember how things were, but I do, and I don't want to ever live like that anymore. It wasn't fair to you or me. Daddy wasn't going to be good to you or ever be. Only Brie. I couldn't stand it anymore. The cops said there was antifreeze in Daddy's body, but did they tell anyone about the Mount Paron too? When I got home from school that day, I knew what was going on. Daddy was barely breathing. I knew he was going to die. That's why I didn't call for help or anyone else. I wanted to make sure that he couldn't be mean to you or me anymore. He died before I went to pick up Brie from school. I watched him and I knew he couldn't hurt you anymore. Then we were happy for a while, just the three of us. And then you married David. He was mean to you. He was mean to all of us, meaner than Daddy. I knew you loved him like you loved Daddy, and you were going to let him treat you like he did, and you wouldn't leave. It wasn't fair, Mommy. He didn't love you, me, or Brie. I never thought anyone would miss David. No one but you loved him. It was harder with Daddy because you were always home or with him. But I did it. I made sure he would never hurt you anymore. So, that Friday, when David came home so you could go to the post office, is when I did it. It was easy. I asked him if he wanted something to drink, and I put antifreeze in his glass with some soda, and he drank 2 whole glasses. That was it. It only took longer for David than with Daddy. When I put the antifreeze in Daddy's Gatorade, it only took a day or so, and that's when he died when you were sleeping on the couch. But for David, after I took the soda with antifreeze, he locked himself in the room. I took the extra key because I knew where he hid it. I tried to get him to drink some of that booze with a dropper thing, but he was out of it and wouldn't. I poured the antifreeze in the glass and on the floor and left the bottle on the floor. I also left the bottle in the room, and then I put the gloves back in the kitchen and got ready for work. You never knew, and you know, all the cops are saying all of this stuff to shout you to everyone. You know I love you, Mommy. It's just not fair when you told me that they dug Daddy up. I knew what was going to happen. No one was ever supposed to know. And now that they do, and they think you did it, but you didn't, it was me. When the cops came to my school today, I thought that they had figured it out and I was going to go to jail, but they didn't take me, Mommy. I can't live like this and watch what they are doing to you. Not anymore. But I can't go to jail for the rest of my life. I can't put you through all that. I did the only thing that I could to help you, Mommy. I know you hate me for doing what I did. But, Mommy, remember that I love you more than anything. I did it for you and for us. Please forgive me. Someday when all this is over, please forgive me. Make sure you take care of Brie. She's all you have left now. Remember how happy we were together, and you will be happy again. I promise you, Mommy. Please tell Matt I love him and I'm sorry. Tell Brie to be a good girl for you. I love her too now. Please don't hate me. Remember I love you. Ashley. Detectives later noted that Stacey really wanted the 911 call taker to know that there was a suicide note, and that it seemed more important for her to tell them about the suicide note than to talking about the condition of her daughter. When the medical team arrived, they found Ashley in a critical condition and even noted that she was only 15 minutes away from death and had accessed several drugs in her system. A few hours later, when Ashley woke up in the hospital, she was shocked by the presence of machines, people, and the police around her. A detective told Ashley that he had been informed that there was a suicide note and that she had killed his father and her stepfather. The detective said, "She looked at me really wide-eyed and flat out said, 'I did not try to kill myself, nor did I leave a suicide note.'" Ashley also denied killing her father and stepfather. Without wasting any much time, Stacey was arrested at the hospital and charged with the murder of David Castor and attempted murder on Ashley. News spread. When Stacey's mother, Judy Eaton, heard about what was going on, she said she does not believe her daughter is guilty. She said, "They were blaming Stacey for this. I kinda went hysterical. I cannot believe Stacey has it in her to kill 2 men, especially men she's supposed to love. I did not believe Stacey did it. She will not frame Ashley." Approximately 2 months after Stacey's arrest, on December 20th, 2007, Stacey Castor was charged with 1 count each of second-degree murder, second-degree attempted murder, and a plot to present a forged will. 9 months later, on September 25th, 2008, Stacey had already hired a defense attorney, that is Chuck Keller, who would follow the line of defense that Ashley was responsible for David Castor's death and that Ashley also attempted to kill herself. However, Fitzpatrick, who prosecuted the case, said there were compelling evidence against Stacey. On January 12, 2009, Stacey Castor's trial began. While two cases were being presented to the jury, her second husband David Castor's death and attempted murder on her daughter Ashley Wallace, attorneys were also allowed to present evidence from Stacey's first husband, that is Michael Wallace's death. Both Ashley Wallace and Stacey Castor took the stand. In a fiery cross-examination, Fitzpatrick confronted Castor with the phone calls that investigators had from wiretapping her phone, as well as computer evidence that showed that he had not only written Ashley's suicide letter, but also had 2 drafts. The jury deliberated for 4 days, and on February 5, 2009, Stacey was convicted of second-degree murder on David Castor, attempted murder of her daughter, and forging David Castor's will. On March 5, 2009, Stacey Castor was sentenced to just over 51 years in prison.
You know, in my 34 years in the criminal justice system as a lawyer and as a judge, I've seen serial killers, I've seen contract killers, I've seen murderers of every variety and stripe, but I have to say, Mrs. Castor, you are in a class by yourself. What you did to David Castor can only be described as premeditated torture. And while you're not being held accountable for it here, I must say that what you did to Michael Wallace was also premeditated torture. Premeditation is not something we often see in the criminal courts, but it certainly is present in both of these instances. Now, as bad and as evil as that is, what you tried to do to your daughter Ashley is simply something that I find I almost can't comprehend. I've seen a lot of defendants come through this court system, including some whose parents tried to take the blame for what they did, but I've never seen one who was prepared to sacrifice their child to shift the blame away from themselves. You know, I listened carefully to the testimony of both your daughters, and I have daughters too. They're older than yours, but they have a similar gap in their ages. And I listened not only to the wonderment of your daughter Ashley as she tried to comprehend what you did to her, I also listened to the horror your daughter Bree experienced in finding her older sister almost dead. You not only deprived those children of their father, but you were prepared to deprive them of one another. And I'm certain that your daughters, like my daughters, like most children who have siblings, expect and are comforted by the knowledge that when their parents pass on, they'll at least have each other to grow old and share life with. You almost succeeded in murdering one child and orphaning the other. You know, that ranks in my judgment as one of the most reprehensible things I think I've ever seen in the criminal justice system. I know that you maintain your innocence, but I'll tell you, in my view, the evidence of your guilt is overwhelming. Unlike many defendants who pass through my courtroom, you're not just a danger to the general public, you're a danger to the people who love you and are closest to you. And I believe that the sentence I'm about to impose will remove that danger once and for all. Upon your conviction for murder in the second degree, the murder of David Castor on count 1 of the indictment, it's the sentence and judgment of the court that you be sentenced to a minimum of 25 years and a maximum of life in the New York State correctional system. Upon your conviction for attempted murder in the second degree of your daughter Ashley Wallace on count 2 of the indictment, it is the sentence and judgment of the court that you be sentenced to a determinate sentence of 25 years in the New York State correctional system, to be followed by a 5-year period of post-release supervision. I direct that sentence run consecutive to the sentence I've just imposed on count 1 of the indictment. Upon your conviction of offering a false instrument for filing in the first degree on count 3 of the indictment, it's the sentence and judgment of the court that you be sentenced to a minimum of 1 1/3 years and a maximum of 4 years in the New York State correctional system. I direct that sentence to run consecutively to the sentence I've imposed on counts 1 and counts 2 of the indictment. There's a $275 surcharge. Ms. Castor, you have 30 days with which to appeal the sentence and judgment of the court. We are recessed.
Thank you. Okay. She's in coma. Okay. As soon as I get back.
Thanks.
the sentencing, Ashley took a stand and said, "I hate my mother for ruining so many people's lives. What gave her the right to play God with people? I never knew what hate was until now. Even though I do hate her, I still love her at the same time. She was my best friend too. She was, and then she took it all away. I would have done anything for her, but she decided she wanted to kill me instead." Stacey Castor, however, maintained her innocence. She said, "I did not kill Michael Wallace. I did not kill David Castor, and I did not try to kill my daughter. Period. And I will never say that I did, ever." Sadly, Stacey Castor died in prison of natural causes in 2016. She was 48 years. She never saw her daughters again.